All right, let's get the conversation further down into the economics of the Tinubu's administration. Joining me also from our Abuja studios is Paul Alaje, the senior economist at SPM Professionals. Thank you so much for your time. As always, Paul Alaje from our studios. I'm sure you were listening to the tail end of the comments by Yomi Olugbenro about those short-term palliatives. So let me just shoot very straight from the hips. My first question to you. Do you have any idea where we are right now in the stream of the economics of the Tinubu's administration? Do you know?
Well, I can tell you that it's quite unclear, but what I can tell you with the new policies coming out from President Tinubu, it appears as though we are trying to manage an emergency situation because from what the president just released, what looks like emergency fund of 2 trillion naira to support some sector, SMEs, some part of infrastructure, that this will be for a period of 6 months. You recall that on the 31st of August, you and I think 31st of July or August, you and I had a conversation as the program was going on. President Tinubu live broadcast was going on, so we had to pause for him. And he made a lot of promise, some of which I think is now trying to fulfill. But if you ask me what 23 trillion naira cannot do in terms of budget, I doubt if 2 trillion naira can fix it. So, but whether we like it or not, we have an emergency fund in place. And like a patient who perhaps is in an emergency unit, we want to see whether the patient will be discharged to go home or will be discharged to go to ICU or will be discharged to go to ward. So it all depends on how our policy direction is. For me, I can tell you when I look at the policy direction, the policy statement, policy direction, the policy environment, and I see that with all of these give us policy consistency in order for us to have a desired policy outcome. So all of these are giving some concerns, even though we have seen the central bank saying, oh, the money supply, excess money supply in the economy, and the administration says, well, we need to pump more money. We have 2 to 3 budgets that should run side by side. You know, but all of those we send signal to the economy in form of increased liquidity in the system. And the way central bank will respond is by mopping up such money. When they mop up more money in circulation, it has implication. One, we are saying that investors, we will crowd out investors, whether local investment or foreign investment. Certainly, we are seeing that happening to already established investment in Nigeria. Another implication is that we may crowd out employment. And of course, you need to look at what Bureau of Statistics has reported. Those who cannot get job an hour has increased from 4% to 5.2%. And for those who could not get up to 20 hours, has also significantly reduced. Generally speaking, to speak economics directly, if you want to know where the current policy in terms of administrative policy or government policies in economics, economists have what we call indicators. Indicators is what tells you how well you are speeding. For instance, if you're on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway or Abuja-Kaduna Expressway, you see your speedometer. For economics, we look at key parameters or key indicators. The first one is growth. We should be growing between 6 to 7% or preferably double-digit growth. What we have is less than 3% at 2.9%. You look at inflation. Inflation is expected to be a single-digit inflation, 6 to 9%, or worst-case scenario, according to what was passed in 2024 budget, about 20-26%. What we have now is over 33%, nearly 34%. In fact, food inflation is over 40%. Then you look at another parameter, which is unemployment, which is how many persons of the labor force are being gainfully employed. From what we have on 1 hour, as against what should be 2 to 3%, we are 5.2%. For 20 hours, we have over 30%. Then you want to see a distribution of income or equitable distribution of income, which of course the desire is fairness. What we have seen right now is labor agitating for 250, government saying we can only pay you 62,000 at federal, and states say we cannot even afford 62,000. You see, all of these we now send signal to the monetary component because we have seen what happens to exchange rates because of devaluation either on the 15th or 16th of 2023. We saw what has happened to Naira. We have also seen perhaps subsidy removal so that government can have more money to execute government needs. But rather than having this kind of, we have seen policy environment from my explanation, we have seen policy decision, but what are policy outcomes? Policy outcome is what all Nigerians want to see. Policy direction is what government feels we need to take in terms of decisions so that we can have desired policy outcome. But is all of this adding up in terms of people that become poor? Are they adding up in form of exchange rates? Are they adding up in form of inflation? Are they adding up in form of poverty? So as policy makers, it's important for us to see what is our desired outcome. We put that first, make policy in order to achieve them.
I got everything, but I'm trying to find, folks ask me, where exactly are we going? So you talk about the 2 trillion naira short-term, 6 months a program. Then you got the $1 trillion by the year 2030 GDP target. So can you see very clearly the signpost economic policies and actions with clearly defined outcomes and the timelines of when and what will be achieved? Do you think they are very clearly defined? 1 year in, 3 years to go?
Well, in the first 1 year, I can tell you that it's not so very clear. I've seen that the DMBs are raising support right now. They have, many of them are raising more funds so that they can meet up with the new rules by the central bank in form of capital recapitalization policy that was introduced by the Apex Bank. That's perhaps what the banking sector is doing. But all of this, we have implication of 1 trillion naira. With a weaker currency, when exactly are we going to get there? What is the methodology of getting there? Our finance ministry seems to be doing something that is not completely in tangent with what monetary authority is doing. You see, even the 2 trillion naira and the monies we said we'll give to the poor, 50,000 and 100,000, all of these have implication on increasing money supply. The central bank comes again, mops it up using increased NPR. That again, we have implications. So for me, it's as though we are still chasing one's tail. And we are not really getting there. And that's why we are of the opinion that policies are not converging. And the kind, we have mentioned where we want to go. We want to build this economy to be $1 trillion economy, not 1 trillion naira, $1 trillion. So how do we inject this economy enough for the economy to surge up, for us to have $1 trillion economy? But what we have done is that we actually brought the economy down from over $400 trillion economy to about 500 billion, I beg your pardon, 400 billion, over $400 billion economy to around $300 billion economy. Why? One policy devaluation. So do I think we are moving towards that direction? I don't think so. Just today, we have also seen reports about the policy made by former administration regarding Nigeria getting to rice sufficiency. Actually started under I think the president of AFGB, Akim Adesina, about rice revolution in Nigeria, and the previous administration clearly supported that policy. Today, we have seen that tariffs on imports has been removed so that Nigeria can now freely import. The question is, what is the policy outcome? What are we trying to achieve? So that this does not further weaken Naira. Because when Nigeria, we look at the volume with which we consume rice, and not just us, even the rest of the world, if you put those pressure without putting timeline as to when this must stop into it, I'm afraid we are talking 1,500. I don't know what it will be by December or by this time next year.
Okay, great. So, as I said earlier, the administration is 1 year down. So what's your outlook on the rest of the 3 years between 2027, a bit of a base, worst case, best case scenario, based on where we are at the moment, Paul?
Well, a lot needs to be done. We need to double up with our decision and action if we want to see desirable numbers. Because what economists, the rest of the world, we judge us with, it's not just what we think. It's not about we thinking we are fine. Those indicators, can we grow by 7 to 10% between that range? Can we have inflation go back to 9%? Can we have unemployment reduced to single digits? We need to do more. First of all, we need to start with signaling. I was happy, I think around March, when central banks started positive signaling in terms of exchange rate. That has now stopped. We know that central bank may be making effort in terms of bringing stability. It's not just to reduce or increase. Can it be stable? The environment is very volatile. So we need to do a lot regarding bringing stability in that. And what should we do? Deliberate agro processing. What must we do again? Deliberate a policy that we go beyond short-term policy, but medium to long-term policy, such that we can start strategically looking at how do we promote some output that we can sell to the rest of the world? How do we get to sufficiency in some kind of output? We thought maybe it would be maize, it would be wheat, and so on and so forth. But rather than fighting it, it doesn't take beyond 4 months for wheat to grow. Why is it difficult for us? With all the mass land we have, with the weather that favors us, and all of those, signaling is really not there right now. 2, action, decision of government to push all out from Ministry of Agriculture and beyond the federal government, state government, meeting with the federal to say, we need seedlings, we need support, we need fertilizers, we need to now have organized and coordinated farmers. We are not having that right now in Nigeria. Farming is not seen as business the way government have seen it over the years, and not just this administration. It's an interventionist policy. Unfortunately, intervention does not feed a nation. It is business, it is action, and it's the way forward. So couple that with manufacturing, but all of this, one thing seems to be at the center point: power, energy, and of course, improve output of the two of them.
Thank you for those perspectives into the economics of Tinubu's administration. Thank you so much. We wish you all the best. And have a great evening out there in Abuja. Alaje, senior economist at SPM Professional.